One of the most popular YouTube video genres these days is lost media. If you've got a YouTube account, you probably know exactly what lost media is. But what about a lost franchise? That's exactly what EverGirl is. Up until quite recently, the majority of marketing towards kids was so heavily focused on specific genders. Back when I was growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s, it felt like everything had to be either a product for boys or for girls. I'm sure this seemed like a good idea to marketers at the time, and it probably worked in a lot of cases, but there are also a number of horror stories where it massively backfired. For starters, young boys were often very likely to reject anything that was being coded as for girls. You can't risk being seen enjoying something girly, or you risk being called a slur. One of my favourite marketing screw-ups that employed this tactic was the Powerpuff Girls movie. Recently, I've been chronologically rewatching Cartoon Network commercial breaks on YouTube because something is broken in my brain, and I recently came to the period where the Powerpuff Girls movie was being hyped up. Initially, the advertising was so clearly gendered towards girls, even though the show appealed to both boys and girls. These early commercials took a very yay girl power tone, and the overuse of the song That's What Girls Do by girl band No Secrets made it seem like this was a movie just for young girls. Well, the Powerpuff Girls movie flopped big time, and rewatching commercials from this era makes it so clear that the marketing team realized they messed up and had to significantly change direction. In the weeks after the film released, the commercials transformed into a much grittier tone, clearly trying to appeal to boys and even men. Hell, they were running non-stop commercials on Adult Swim late at night, but the damage was done.
In a town without heroes, evil has a new face.
Clearly Nickelodeon didn't care about this because they launched the EverGirl lifestyle brand in 2004, all about appealing to tween girls. People high up at Nickelodeon must have thought this was a demographic that was lacking for the channel, which surprises me because I would have thought, if compared with Cartoon Network at the very least, that the demographic of Nick's viewers would skew more heavily towards females. But what do dolls and a clothing line have to do with Nickelodeon video game history? Well, stunningly, this brand received a video game. Nick and Viacom were dead serious about trying to force EverGirl into being a thing.
It's not going to happen.
But despite this over-the-top marketing push, EverGirl the brand, as well as the GBA game, have almost completely been lost to time. Join me this week as I explore EverGirl on the GBA, Nickelodeon's lost franchise. My name's Brandon and this is Nickelodeon Video Game History, a show where I take a look back on Nickelodeon's 30 years in the video game space and retrospectively review each entry chronologically. So yeah, apparently EverGirl was a product brand owned by Nickelodeon and Viacom that was introduced in 2004. Don't blame you if you've never heard of it before, because I only just learned about it randomly. EverGirl is something extremely unique in Nickelodeon's history because it's not a TV show or movie. It even makes their decision to create the TAC video game series look normal. EverGirl was a lifestyle brand designed to appeal mostly to tween girls. Products in the EverGirl line included dolls, clothing, and an online virtual community, as well as 4 main characters. Again, if you don't remember any of this, I don't blame you. This whole thing feels like a fever dream because it's hardly documented anywhere on the internet. Doing some Googling reveals a couple of archived articles about the launch of the brand and a laughably bare-bones Wikipedia page. Every archive of the EverGirl website on the Wayback Machine is of when the website was shut down for a makeover. This website supposedly had some animated shorts too, which are probably lost forever now. The marketing push for this brand was so strong that Nick had Swedish girl band Play make a song for the brand. And there was even a proposed EverGirl TV show. Nick and Viacom clearly wanted this to be a huge thing. But after like 2 years in the spotlight, EverGirl had completely crashed and burned. More like NeverGirl. An area where EverGirl actually did manage to release something is the video game space. Shocking, I know. On October 9, 2005, EverGirl for the GBA started collecting dust on store shelves. There also seems to have been a PC version which was released about a year earlier. The GBA version was developed by Artificial Mind and Movement, who were now known as Behaviour Interactive after a name change in 2010, partly due to their name being abbreviated to A2M. Can't make this shit up. These days, they're best known for Dead by Daylight, but over their 20 plus years in the industry, they've had a very close relationship with Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. They developed The Misadventures, Teen Titans, both Drake and Josh games, Rango, Victoria's Hollywood Arts debut, and Plankton's Robotic Revenge. The only game of theirs that I've played so far is Misadventures, which left a less than stellar impression on me. And unsurprisingly, it's basically impossible to find a review of this game. I doubt anybody even reviewed it. Maybe I'm breaking new ground here. EverGirl on GBA seems like a recipe for disaster. Will this be a spectacular train wreck like one would assume at first glance? Okay, I was really not expecting to get as much enjoyment out of EverGirl as I did. For starters, am I going crazy, or are this game's visuals pretty damn good? They're not reinventing the wheel or anything when it comes to, like, fidelity, but look at the animations for the characters. Even while idling, your character looks so fluid. Just watching the characters run along gave me more enjoyment than a significant amount of other games I've played in Nickelodeon Video Game History. Serious credit to A2M here. Like a lot of games that market themselves towards girls, EverGirl is all about letting young girls live out the fantasy of adulthood. You also get a solid amount of character customization for a GBA game. By interacting with the mirror in your room, you can change your hair to practically any color you can think of, and then interacting with the wardrobe allows you to change the color of your clothes. You're basically locked into the one style A2M chose for the main character, but the fact that you can even customize her this much seems pretty significant. Essentially, the gameplay of EverGirl is like a way better version of All Grown Up Express Yourself. All you're really doing is running around completing fetch quests broken up by occasional minigames, but there's some really important differences when it comes to execution. One of the most interesting points of difference is that EverGirl has a constant narrative running throughout the entire game, whereas Express Yourself tried to recreate a bunch of episodes of the show. You wake up one day and find out from your Aunt Angie that you've inherited a rundown theatre, which you start converting into a cafe, just like every girl dreams of. Like the clothing and hair colour, you get some ownership of how this cafe looks. As you progress through the story, you'll get free reign of choosing paint schemes and the type of furniture throughout the cafe. I made sure that my cafe had the Habbo Club sofa. There's also spicy drama, like when that no good bitch Aunt Angie tries to sell the cafe out from under you. It's hard to tell if I was enjoying this stuff legitimately or ironically, but hell, I was enjoying it, so who really cares? As you complete your fetch quests, like having to constantly track down this stupid dog that keeps running away from one of your roommates, you'll quickly realise that there are no men in the town of Everview. These fearless women have finally slain the patriarchy and now live in a utopia. It's like a reverse Chaos Walking. Great reference for all 12 people who saw that film. I also choose to believe that your roommate Taylor is gay purely based on this dialogue. A2M said gay rights, baby. It does seem that the main character of EverGirl is the only person capable of doing anything useful in this town though. The most random people are always begging you to complete the strangest tasks for them. Why is the paint store employee forcing me to take bird photos in the park? I've got a cafe to run. A neat little quality of life addition is that your current objective is always displayed on the screen. Sometimes these are a bit too vague, like what the hell does "you rule" or "relax a bit" mean? How can I relax when I have a cafe to run? But for the most part, I really appreciated that A2M wanted players to know what they had to do at all times. On top of that, the town of Everview is really easy and logical to navigate. This was one of the biggest problems I had with Express Yourself. So much of the so-called gameplay there was you scouring every inch of that game, because the devs always put characters in the most random locations with no hints towards where they'd be. The game gives you the ability to jump while exploring the town, which is exclusively used to grab these power-up things. Power-ups aren't even the right word. I have no idea what these items did, but I kept on collecting them. At the end of each quest, the game tells you how many you collected, but I couldn't tell you what their actual purpose was. Giving some much needed life to the fetch quest gameplay is your mobile phone. Having a phone is like the quintessential part of a tween girl's 2000s adult life fantasy, at least if you ask crusty old marketers. This pretty simple addition is actually quite brilliant. You'll get texts from different characters and have to call them up to progress different quests. At times, this actually gives you a choice of which quest you take on first. It doesn't really add anything of substance, but I don't know, something about having this here makes the gameplay feel a little less flat. You'll also unlock new cases, wallpapers, and ringtones for your phone, another quintessential aspect of the early 2000s experience. It's just a shame there isn't a shitty Nokia version of a Linkin Park song here to set as your ringtone. Like I mentioned, EverGirl also has a bunch of minigames to break up the fetch questing. These are fine. You've got a rollerblading minigame that plays better than some of the rocket power garbage I experienced. There's a photo minigame that is arguably better than Nicktoons Freeze Frame Frenzy, and then there's a DDR type minigame. Is this what passes for dancing in the EverGirl world? The game does get a bit patty by repeating these minigames a lot, but at least they're not egregiously bad. They're pretty inoffensive to sit through. What can't be ignored, however, is this game's performance on a technical level. I was just strolling along when I was blindsided by a horrifying crash. I thought this would be a one-off thing, but I had it happen a few more times, all at seemingly random intervals. Maybe this was an emulation glitch, but I can honestly say this almost never happens with GBA emulation. Generally, whenever you encounter this while emulating, it's something that was present in the original game. It really sucks that these crashes basically ruined my experience, because I was actually kind of digging EverGirl. To my surprise, EverGirl is a game with a lot of redeeming qualities. If I was a little girl in the early 2000s, this would have been a great game to me. Sure, it's not some revolutionary gameplay experience, but I'll be damned if I didn't get a kick out of the cafe storyline and the decent amount of customization. It really is a much better version of All Grown Up Express Yourself. Just the fact that the developers don't force you to scour every inch of the game to progress is a lifesaver. Would I recommend that you play it? Probably not, but the EverGirl brand is such a neat curiosity when it comes to Nickelodeon's history, and the fact that its existence has been all but lost makes this a really interesting game. I was expecting a train wreck, but I was pleasantly surprised here. Next time, we get back to some more traditional Nickelodeon content as I take a look at Lights Camera Pants. Available for both the GBA and home consoles, this was essentially a SpongeBob themed Mario Party style game. Nickelodeon's previous attempt at a Mario Party clone was disastrous, so let's hope this one manages to replicate the formula a little better. To make sure you don't miss that video or any of my upcoming reviews, including the impending Nicktoons Unite review, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the channel, jump over to Twitter and give me a follow.